ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. Okay, so this meeting is officially called to order. This is the City of Martindale Planning and Zoning meeting on June 16th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. So roll call. Chair Shell Allen here. Vice Chair McLeod.
Here.
Commission Member Deviney.
Here.
Commission Member Paul. Absent. Commission Member Villalobos.
Here.
Commission Member Bunker.
Here.
Great. If we will rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I love that. Okay, so just jumping right in. Under our agenda, item A, consideration and action to approve the certificate of appropriateness application for scenic corridor located at 710 Northwest River Road in Martindale, Texas. And so, Jared, were you able to get the slides?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can I break in here, Lisa? Of course, according to our ordinance, this is actually a council function. It has to be done at a council meeting.
It's a little both.
What's that?
It's a little bit of both. There's a sign regulation and then there's a scenic corridor regulation. The scenic corridor regulation, I believe, is planning.
The application is for the scenic corridor. And so the ordinance, the scenic corridor ordinance requires that be a council certificate of appropriateness is issued by the council, and it has to go through a public hearing per the ordinance. So we're going to have to really do the official act on July 7th at that meeting. However, we need to carry on with this just to give the council a look at what's going on, and so we know what's happening here, so everybody understands what's going on and go fast on July 7th. So I just wanted to interject that now, that there really isn't any action to be done on this one today, but discussion is certainly okay. So carry on.
Thank you very much. And actually there was, when we get to the end of it, there was one question that I had, and probably by the notion of revisiting, that question will get answered. So thank you very much. So
I have a quick question.
Yeah,
Lisa, is this outline, was that sent to us? The PowerPoint?
I just put it together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really just to follow along.
I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
No, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, I'm just letting you guys know that the application and fee was submitted to change the previous Native Furniture Works sign located at the property owned by Jack Mudd on Highway 80, on the Highway 80 side of his 710 Northwest River Road property. The Native Furniture Works sign was erected prior to the establishment of the scenic corridor, and therefore the location and size of the sign is grandfathered for meeting current sign and height requirements. The old sign and logo decal was removed as Native Furniture Work is no longer in business. Necessary repairs were made to rotten boards on the sign in preparation for the next sign lease up and coming. So if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so what's being presented is approval for a temporary sign, which will only be there for 4 months. And then the next lease on the sign shall be considered either by P&Z or the council, whichever hat we are wearing, whichever hat we need to wear, based on the following criteria. One thing that I wanted to draw to everyone's attention is that there is a substitution of message allowed according to chapter 152.12 that says a sign containing a non-commercial message is allowed in any instance in which a sign with a commercial message is allowed. subject to the same requirements, and then vice versa. So that's all that says. That is an image of what the proposed temporary for 4 months sign is to look like. Okay, so next slide.
Hey, real quick, Lisa, you sent that ordinance. I couldn't, it wouldn't open, by the way.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Okay, continue. I'm sorry.
That's right. So also to follow, Mr. Mudd wanted us to let it be known that he does have a tenant for that sign lined up as a result of this letter of intent, which is probably kind of hard to read, but basically it is the Swift River Pecan business that's near Fentress. And the letter of intent basically says that the sign will be available after November the 10th. And so the temporary sign would be taken down, and this proposed sign would at that point be put up. Okay, so the next slide. One of the things, according to our ordinance, it states that whenever we go through this process, that you have to not only describe what the sign is, what it looks like visually, but also its location, as well as how it is constructed. So there's an aerial map with the circle and the arrow. That is the sign location that has been there for more than 20 years. And that's on just off of Highway 80. And then the next slide. So I just added a little bit of information, and I'm gonna let Jared email this to everyone. I was having some issues with compressing it in order to get it out. So he knows how to do that better than I. So just so that we all are aware that a certificate is required for development activities in the scenic corridor, and that signage is one of them. And that they're supposed to let us know what the lettering and how it is built, the graphics. Wanted to let you know that on Mr. Mudd's application, it states that the graphics would be added onto the existing 12 by 12 sign. Graphics will be made of a plastic sign material screwed to the board backing. This will only be temporary for 4 months. This political sign will be taken down on or before November 10, 2020, and will be replaced by the new sign by Troy Swift, owner of Swift River Pecan, LLC. And since, in fact, we are not going to be taking any action, if there's any questions about this particular item, this would be the appropriate time to ask. Great. So then if there's no discussion about it, then we can just go to letter B on our agenda.
I do have kind of a comment.
Yes.
I mean, it's nothing that, it's not going to show that the council is one way or the other as far as political views or anything, whether we yay or nay it.
No.
No.
And that was why I added the actual criteria, because
I'm glad you did.
yeah, we have decisions to be made based on, is it the right size, the right height, and which is grandfathered in, so we don't even get to make a decision on that. It also does state that there is a opportunity for individuals on their own property to have political signs.
Right.
So it's just, you know.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
I think the regulation only makes an exemption, however, for signs of a certain size for the.
Right.
This is still large enough to regulations would still apply.
I've thrown out a lot.
Hearing some background noise.
Somebody we can hear in the background.
It was a
Okay.
somebody participating, so
Okay.
they're muted. I don't know if anybody caught what I said, but the size of the sign does not exempt it from the signage ordinance due to its size.
Right. Okay, so then the next item that I had put on the agenda is consideration of possible action for construction located at 7 51 Northwest River Road in Martindale. And this I'm gonna lean on Mayor DeVinny. If you would like to weigh in on this item and sort of bring all of us up to speed. I know that this particular project has been kind of extensive, ongoing, and will continue. So.
Sure, I'll give everybody a rundown on what's going on. This is down there just across the river road from Jack's place. Mr. Brian Jeffries is the owner. It's the it's on the lot that has the big llama mural on it. He originally, back about 2 months ago, came in and said that he wanted to make sure he could build a barn and put a fence up. And we said, well, you got to get a permit for that. And so write down what you need, show us what your plans are. He did that, and the plans for the fence, he had it extending out into the 25-foot setback. As part of our building code or zoning code, I don't remember which one. You can't have anything within 25 feet of the front property line, the frontage road property line. So we said there was two options. Number one, you could change your design, or you could come to the Planning and Zoning Commission and ask for an exemption or a variance or a zoning change or something. And it was up to him which option he wanted to try. That's how, I guess, Lisa got first involved with this when they were calling saying, what do we need to do about that? In the meantime, he's finally decided that, well, he really didn't need to go out that far, and has actually removed the section that was extending into the setback zone. But he's still got problems with his fence because he extends down into what I believe is the floodway extensively, and he's off getting an engineer and some other people looking at that to make sure he's complies with all the floodway requirements. In the meantime, he did apply for a building permit just to put up his barn. You can see the foundation out there, but we don't need any P&Z help with that. It's just a standard, meets all the requirements, give him a permit, and he has one to put up the side barn. And so as late as today, he's still off scratching his head as to what to go do about all of that. So there's really no action to take by the zoning commission now. It's just a building going on and the typical issues that people run into when they don't read the rules before they start to plan.
Yes, sir. And I really do appreciate you, Mayor, taking the ball on that. There's a lot of moving parts, and when a project goes on for a long time, I kind of think it's important that we have sort of a brief of it every so often to keep at least anybody that needs to be in the know. So based on that, any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the item C, discussion and possible action to approve or instruct the city attorney to begin drafting any necessary documents for the city from chapter 155.041, subsection 4, or commission, which is chapter 155.041, subsection 5, to initiate a zoning change based on chapter 155 zoning code of the Martindale, Texas Code of Ordinances for the purpose of rezoning certain lots which are no longer zoned appropriately for their proposed use. So Jared, if you'll go to the next slide. And council members, I actually emailed each of you prior to the meeting the full map, our full zoning map as it is, as the most current one that I actually have. But I want to draw your attention to the two parcels that are in green, which are our city park. The one above it is 100 Arlene Lane, and then the one below it is 351 FM 1979. So basically what you're seeing in yellow is zoned R1, which means single family detached. So it's residential. You can't do anything but pretty much what you see in Martindale proper. So here's the quandary, and I will tell you, at some point I'm gonna survey Carmen and Gloria in the office and ask them, how many times have you referred somebody or given them my phone number to call? I got 2 phone calls yesterday. I've gotten 3 and 4 emails today about the 2 properties that are on either side of our city park. So the question at hand is, what can we do on that property? Well, it's in the floodway. The majority of the property is in the floodway. So no single family structure could be built there no matter what the zone is. So it puts the property owner, the current property owner and or future property owner in a quandary and really in a catch-22. So
Make a quick clarification. Okay, sorry.
Sure, no, go ahead.
I was going to make a quick clarification. They could build a single family structure. However, it would have to comply with the floodplain ordinances and base level elevations, which would require an extensive expense on their part to do so.
Correct.
And it could not impede water flow.
And it cannot impede water flow. And I'm going to exaggerate, so please let it be known that I'm exaggerating. It would basically be a high rise. It would have to be so high in order to meet all elevation levels. Right. So, you know, so anyway, there's a lot of factors involved here, and I am really just, in the most official way as I can, requesting that we all agree and give legal counsel the authority to start sort of digging into our zoning, because I'm pointing out 2 lots. There are more.
So real quick, Lisa, are we talking about making these commercial or something, or what?
That's why we're here. That's why.
So you could allow a tubing business to come in or something like that, correct?
Well, this is basically up to.
Is that what we're going with? Something like that? Let's give that an example. So Don's Fish Camp can come in and expand their operations.
That's not.
Well, I won't have a problem with that. So
I know you will, and
I will. You will. We'll have a big problem.
I know that. So slow down. I will tell you.
I just don't like the way this thing's starting out. I mean, we got it already zoned residential. So I mean, if we're going to go commercial or whatever.
I think we could come up with a new zone like agricultural.
There you go. Okay, there you go.
All right. Let her finish with the options we have first.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So, point being is that what I want to tell you is that I've not gotten one single phone call out of the many phone calls about that type of project at all. The closest thing to that, which we have all seen firsthand, I think most of us have seen firsthand, would be actually the current property owner of the 351 FM 1979 came in a couple of years ago wanting to do like an RV park.
And that's a terrible idea because we're in a floodway. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, if it's, I'm going to have an issue with this. If we're going to try to do a change from residential to commercial.
I'm going to ask you to just slow down.
Well,
more than you realize.
I don't like the tone of this. It's already zoned residential and we're changing to something else. We better have it better be very self-explanatory, and I see something coming up I don't like.
Mike, you've made yourself clear. I am going to request that you back down. I'm going to request that you back down while I finish this presentation. You will have opportunity for discussion. My point of it all is that I believe that it is the duty and the responsibility at this point of the city to make some decisions. Now, we have an opportunity to make whatever decisions this council / commission chooses to make. And so please do not think, and I'll say this lastly, Mike, and thank you very much for allowing me to continue. It is not my position to push or give a particular tone for anything. It is my position to present an issue, and that is what I am doing. So thank you. So my point is that there are a lot of places, those are just the two that are being highlighted at this point, that whatever it is, whatever we need to do, and I don't even know that it has to necessarily be a motion particularly. Kent, you can tell us if we have to make a motion in order to give you the ability to begin to look at what our options are. Yes, sir.
Whatever, you know, you guys talk about it, and if you want to have Jared and Rob tell me to start working on some of this stuff, and I can. And once we get it in place, then you guys can review it.
Let me weigh in on a couple of things here that I think we need to remember or know. The one she's got marked 351 FM 1979 has in the past couple of months sold to somebody.
Maybe that's why I'm not getting calls on that one anymore.
That's right. Mr. Williams, who used to own that and is the one that wanted the RV park there and other things, has piddled that. The new owners, however, have come in and asked for the zoning building code stuff to go understand that, and they gathered up the information, but I have not heard back from them, and that was several weeks ago. So they're aware of the flood prevention ordinance. They're also aware that it's an R1 and et cetera, and they're likely to come ask some questions about that here in the future.
So I want to continue with a couple of points. So part of the reason
before we get off of that, let me also go, if we go look at the zoning ordinance, I don't remember exactly which paragraph it is, but it does talk in there that the zoning changes can be requested by 3 groups or
Jared, if you back up the screen,
folks. One of them is
I've listed it right there. So there's 3 ways. A property owner can
there you go.
request a zoning change. The city can request a zoning change, and the P&Z Commission can request. Basically, for the city and the requirements are about the same. And it's pretty much the same when a property owner does it as well. It all involves, it's not quick at all. It takes a lot of steps and a lot of processes that we have to go through. First and foremost, the council/commission has to come to an agreement on what it is that we would like to see what we'd like to see the best use of that property be. So that is why I want Kent involved, and because of it being in the floodway, in the floodplain.
What do you expect Kent to do?
So, sorry.
I'm sorry?
What do you expect Kent to do? Is he supposed to come up with other, I mean, I hate paying $125 an hour to give him such a loosely defined action.
I agree.
Here's my thought is where Kent might need to be involved is if we do a zoning change that affects the value of the property, we could be looking at a regulatory taking issue that would have to look into and what that would mean in terms of liabilities on the city side.
Okay.
And I will also tell you that based on all of the zoning changes that were done between the years of 2008 and 2010, our legal counsel at that time, can't think of his name off the top of my head, Mark Taylor, he was involved extensively in every single facet of it to make certain that all laws and ordinances and things all matched up.
I have no issue with that. I agree that that's a good idea. The problem is you've given him, I want to do something different, but I don't know what it is. Go tell me if it's going to be legal. Until we tell him, hey, this is what we think it needs to be used, we're going to have a new zoning type, or, hey, I think this is what we want to change it to that's already in there. All of those things he can go do and understand. But so far, I haven't heard anything that anybody says they want to change this to.
Well, this is our opportunity to have discussion. I was merely trying to lay the groundwork for what it would look like. And then this is our opportunity. And this is not the end all be all by all means.
But you brought it up. What do you want to change it to?
There you go. I agree,
Well,
Mr. Mayor.
quite frankly, it's really not it's really not about what I want to change it to. I don't have a personal agenda of what I feel like is appropriate and or not appropriate for that property. My agenda has to do with the residents that own those parcels and or potential future residents. And if in fact they can actually use the property legally in the way that it's zoned. That's
What
relative.
do they ask you to change it to?
I'm sorry?
What do they ask you to change it to?
Exactly.
The biggest, if I had to like put it on a scale, people want to buy property that's on the river that they can, one of two things, that they can get some kind of return on their investment. We all know that that may or may not fly here. Or two, they want their own personal picnic space. I had a gentleman call last week, and as a matter of fact, he was refreshing because his notion was, I want a private picnic space. Yes, I have an RV, and yes, I have a couple of friends who have RVs too, and we would like to be able to come together and enjoy that space in a private, non-commercial kind of way. And so I haven't heard back from him after I gave him all the information that I had, but I will tell you, so point being is that I know how sensitive the council, and I'm included in that, Mike. Please know that.
Well, we talk about envision. Let me say something. We talk about envision for Martindale. We talk about parks. We talk about green space. Now we're going down a different path totally. And I understand why we're having this conversation in the first place. I agree with Mr. DeVinny.
Well,
it's all one. I don't know why we're being change our zoning for, because it's in a floodway. This is.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you exactly why we're dealing with this.
Let me finish. We've been through this before with RV parks. It's not conducive to building an RV park in a floodway. It gets 20 feet underwater. And we've had this discussion multiple times. And I'm totally against any kind of change in the zoning to allow an RV park to come in where they get washed downstream. It's common sense.
I totally agree.
That's all I gotta say.
Kent, Mr. Wymore, I need you to weigh in on this. So there's this little thing out there legally that basically says if you own a piece of property and the municipality in which it's situated does not allow you to use it for what it is zoned, and maybe you're trying to sell it and you can't sell it because you can't use it for what it's zoned, what that ultimately ends up being is it's like the city is preventing the sale.
So they shouldn't have bought it.
That's an inappropriate response.
That's the right, appropriate response. You shouldn't have bought it. It had the improper. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Mr. Wymore.
So the question would be, do we have any complaints from these citizens that we need to directly respond to and address?
Would you like for me to send you a list?
Yeah. I think get him over to Jared if he doesn't have him, so that the city has them on file. And then, ultimately, if there's a problem that could lead to some form of litigation, and I think the claim is, would this effectively constitute an unconstitutional taking? I don't know, because I don't know what the facts were at the time that they purchased the property. Now, it could be, like Mike said, that these people knew, but are working to procure some change. At least it could be, like you've said, that they don't know. But ultimately, I think what we need to do is take a look at what they've sent, see what the issues are, analyze them from there, and then determine if there's a specific request that's being made. And if there is, then we can see if it's something that the city can grant without otherwise running afoul of the law.
And so basically people are looking at the property and wanting to purchase it, but they want to know what can I do on it? Can I build a house? Well, no, it's in the floodway unless you go 3 stories up. That becomes cost prohibitive.
Right.
They want to know, well, can I, have 10 or 12 RV slips? Well, I share with them the temperament, not the tone, but the temperament of the council and commission in as many years as I've been around. I can't tell them, yes, that's going to work, or no, that's not going to work, because I certainly don't want to put myself or the city in any kind of bind in that regard. All I can tell them is what we've experienced thus far. And
yeah,
so,
I mean, and I think the best answer is to point them to their zoning classification and tell them to read it and review it. And, ultimately, if what they're seeking to do is allowable, then they can request a variance or change from the city. We got to tell them to follow that process.
yeah, I will tell you the property that is located at 100 Arlene Lane, the current property owners owned that property back in 2007, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
2007, 2008. And I learned about it because they had a project that they wanted to, they went through the rezoning process. And at the end of the day, they were denied to do the project that they wanted to do. It was family oriented. It was security. It had nothing to do with tubing. It could have been a good thing. I was green and young on the council at that time, so I did a lot of listening. What I do know is that those same property owners later sold the property, and ultimately that next property owner, I'm guessing the owner financed, so the next property owner tried to do something also and was denied by the city with the project that they wanted. Whether I agreed with it or not is irrelevant. And I'm pretty sure that 2 others have come. Long and short, the property owners that owned that property back in 2007, 2008 have, what's the word I'm looking at? Basically, they've gotten the property back.
Okay.
Okay. I understand now.
The property back.
That makes sense.
They have had it on the market
again
for about 3 years. And that's a guess-ish. And point being is that I know that they've lowered the price to an amount that's close to unbelievable. And so what that means is that a whole lot more people are looking at it. Because
how about we do that buyout program from make it a park? We'll try to get that grant. Let's work as a city and let's get a grant and make a park like it should be.
That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm tired of talking about RVs. Let's talk about the park and how the grants cut along with the grant writer, because we talk about envision. Jared, you talk about envision. We talk about green space. This is what we need to be talking about. I'm ready to get off this subject. Let's talk about your envision and talk about positive things like a green space for citizens and for people to have a park, not to have a bunch of RVs in a floodway.
As a property owner,
I'll see where this conversation's going. They've done it before.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
as a property owner, those property owners have just as much right and say as you and I do as property owners. So we have to make consideration.
I'm not in the floodway.
It doesn't matter.
And by the way, we want to talk about the projects. I got shut down for 6 months on my pier because I built in the floodway. And I played havoc for that with the city. And you know what? I did my homework, and we're talking about a little pier, 0 rise. And they were talking about other things.
See, then you actually are an asset presenting the information in a presentable kind of way. So, let's talk about what it would take. Where are we when it comes to grants and buyouts.
There we go. There we go.
Where are we in regards to all of that? How do we do that?
So it has to have a structure on, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, so the grant process, we can't use buyouts for vacant land. It has to be developed. It has to be a structure on there.
And that property cannot have a permanent structure on it.
Right, and so would it be eligible for this current round of buyouts if there's not a home on it, if it's vacant land?
I heard they were working on that. I did talk to her about that, and they were working on it. They were working on that process because they're trying to get some old photographs to see if there was existing structures before.
Yeah, that might be possible. I think if the problem is if R1 is not a appropriate use for this area,
thank you.
we should look at changing the zone. I think the zone, given that it's in the floodway, the most economical use for it would likely be an agricultural use.
I agree with that.
And so we don't have that listed in our zoning right now. But my recommendation, if we were to consider a zoning change, would be anywhere south of 1979 and Main Street, that triangle that's created there, it would be an agricultural use area, non-developed area. And then that's when we would want to have Kent weigh in to see if there's any regulatory taking that's involved because of that zoning change that's reducing property values and becoming some sort of unconstitutional taking without any recompensing payment.
And we all know that in that yellow area where I have arrows pointed, there used to be quite a few houses in that area that are no longer there because of flooding and literally washing away. And so I don't know what that looks like with agricultural use. How do we move forward with something like that?
We draw it up and have Kent review it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I just don't see, I'm sorry to interject, but I was just gonna say, I don't see why as a city that there's a park, the red spot is available. Why don't we try to buy it as a city and then expand our parks? If that needs to be a park where we start charging, people to go in and use, or to, maybe create some picnic table areas further from the bank, but try to make more, green space but use it for our citizens for the future.
Mm-hmm. You know how in San Marcos, at least it used to be maybe kind of in the Rio Vista Park area, you used to be able to, and maybe you still can, rent a pavilion, for your kid's birthday party for that day or something. And so it wasn't, I would venture to say there was not a cash flow particularly with that concept, but what it did is it made a very inviting, family-oriented place where people could, go and enjoy right by the river. And so I've thought of that kind of thing for years. If in fact the city, we went through a whole lot to get the park that we have today, 10, 12 years ago. And Susan Schmidt was involved with that extensively. And I definitely would like to see that. It makes perfect sense because it is next to our park. And it certainly is a beautiful piece of land that could be in a park situation.
Yeah, and like right now you said, since it's, the price is ridiculously low, why couldn't we get it as a city?
Well, then we ask for, the mayor and also for Mr. Anderson, where would those type of funds come from? And who would be the appropriate one to initiate conversation with the owners to potentially do that?
And for park space, would we have to rezone it to agricultural?
No, we would rezone it to green space.
Didn't even have to do that. I think R1 allow parks to be there. I don't think we have to rezone it there. And I'll weigh in on the rezoning activity. I my feeling is that as long as we don't change the zone and the owners have purchased it when it was a certain zone, our liability as a city is zero. Can't weigh in on that, but I think that's the safest place for that. If we rezone it to anything, all of a sudden our liability for illegal taking goes up, and so I'm very reluctant to even tell people that we're thinking about this until such time as we have a let's change it to this. What does that mean? Discussion / understanding.
Right.
Now,
And this was my attempt to just get the ball.
I mean, I'd like to answer the other part of this question of, well, why in the world don't we just go buy it and make it a park? The answer is money. If parks would be a great thing to go do, but my impression of what the city wants, based off of what inputs we got, etc., the biggest word on Jared's page of who wanted improvements around here wasn't parks, it was roads. And we don't have enough money to go off and do the roads right, much less go in there and spend it on parks.
Agreed.
So right now, for the foreseeable future, until our budget goes up, which it seems to do every year, our revenue keeps growing every year. This year may be a little bit different, but that's because of COVID. But I think the glide path is go put the bulk of our long-term capital improvements on roads and come back and address this when there's hope that we can do something about it in the next 2 or 3 years. Because
Mr.
right now, thinking we're going to go buy $100,000 or $200,000 chunk of land for parks and not put it on the roads would be indefensible to our community.
Mr. DeVinny, can I say a quick point about the roads? I did talk to Ed Thurio about that issue, and I mean, is it possible for us to have a partnership with the county and possibly?
That'd be a great thing to have, but it's not part of this planning and zoning meeting.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there real quick. I mean, possibly.
Let's stay on topic.
Close us down. We're not going to talk about roads on planning and zoning.
Well, you brought it up, so I was just going to make it. I was just going to say he's willing to go in as a partnership with us. That's all. Okay.
Okay. So, so then the last wrap up to this particular item on the agenda is, where does the commission want to see it go from here? Later, we will be scheduling another P&Z meeting for these types of things. So how would you like to see it presented so that some homework can be done between now and the next meeting? Commission members.
I think it needs, if you do want to make a change, which I think is dangerous, then about these kind of properties, somebody needs to come in and says, this is kind of what other towns do and for these kind of situations, and this is what we think we ought to go do. Once you have that, we can turn Kent loose to say, okay, go figure out whether or not this is going to get us in trouble or not.
All right.
But
so
until that happens, we're just all flapping our gums.
Okay, yeah, and can I interject here, please?
Please.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around the options. So they have an option to go, they're already residential. They could go commercial, they could go agricultural, they could go, as far as requesting to the city, or they could go green space.
Well, no,
so they could come up, it's whoever owns the property. Okay, I'd like to be rezoned and I'd like to request green space or whatever.
So this is what has literally happened thus far. The current property owners, more than a decade ago, requested a zoning change. It was denied by that current commission and council.
Was that commercial?
I want to say, I think it was.
That was for the RV park?
I do believe so.
And they wanted to get in with the city, correct?
What do you mean?
Part of their property? With part of the city park property?
I can't speak on that. I'm not sure. If I remember correctly, they wanted a RV park that was high end, that had a manager on site 24/7. So keeping any riffraff or anything out. They were looking at having, you know, very upscale RVs coming in, nothing long-term, all short-term. And their request was denied. I will say at that time, the property owners that are adjacent to this property on Arlene Lane, the houses that are now abandoned, people still lived in those houses. Those houses had not been flooded 4 times yet. And so at that time, it was those folks mostly who really had issue with what they thought was strangers coming into town. So, and that was their opinion, and they had the opportunity to give their say. So since then, no one has officially requested a zoning change. Part of what I put on the agenda is kind of mostly informational, letting everyone know that the city, as in the city council or the commission, which in our situation is the same, but we have the ability to do those zoning changes ourselves. There's a list of processes in those chapters, in chapter 155.041 and 041.4 and 5. So we can go through that process ourselves. If in fact we as a commission and council decide we want that property to be zoned, or not zoned, but if what Jared was talking about, agricultural, or if we want to designate it green space, it does involve the property owner. I don't think we can designate green space on property we do not own. But I just wanted to make that clear that there's only been one zoning request change to my knowledge, and it was more than a decade ago. So we left it with, the last thing that Mr. Mayor DeVinny said was that trying to determine what other cities are doing or have done in this same situation. So Commission member, co-chair actually, McLeod, would you be willing to go to that effort and do that homework and find out what other cities?
I will say, I know San Marcos does not have has any RV parks in it. If we're talking about RV parks, for example.
No, we're not talking about RV parks. What we're talking about is property.
Lisa, can I speak without being interrupted, please? I said, all I got to say is San Marcos does not have any RV parks in the floodway because of that problem. I know that extensively. So that's pretty much standard norm. And the ones that are there now, Pecan Park, there's not one in San Marcos. There's not one RV park at San Marcos on the river. There is some outside of town, and those are all grandfathered. So I know that for a fact. But
do they have parkland in the floodway?
Yes, they do.
Yes. So I think that's what they want you to do is research other cities, probably our size, what they've done to procure property for park.
Lisa, just shoot me an email on what you want, okay?
I will certainly do that. Thank you for being willing to take on that ball.
No
I have a little question, probably if it's way off the topic and I shouldn't even talk about it, then just say so.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, from the 351 FM 1979 property all the way to actually 1979, the road or the bridge, does Martindale own any of that property between there?
Yeah. The one you're looking at that says 32592, that property ID, Jared, point to it. Keep going up, 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 up. Right there. That one we own.
Oh, really?
The next one down, 28201, that one we do not own. The next one down, that little sliver, that one we own.
Oh, okay.
Those two and the 43080 we own, and the stuff on the other side we own. So
Oh, really?
the 351 FM 1979 really would help us connect all of that, which was what we were hoping the Caldwell County buyout grant would do. But they ran it, you know, when they started, we warned them there was no buildings on it, and they said, oh, we can get by that, but they haven't got by that. They are the people at just above the one she has marked 100 Arlene Lane, that 27966. Jared, can you point the pointer to that one?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, that one. That's the Gonzalez's property. They were talking to the Caldwell County grant buyout people. But the big one in the middle, their names start with a P. I can't remember the last name.
We probably ought not talk about actual people's names.
Hell, it's public information. If you have that number, you can look it up. But
yep.
Bottom line is that they were actually contacted, I believe, by the grant buyout people. But I want to say that what I remember was they weren't interested in it.
Oh, okay.
Question, Mayor. Have we talked to the county about getting the county to purchase some of this land and have a co-operating it with the county for
not
the connected properties?
So I'd like to see some of that property cleared and used as hike and bike trails.
Not outside the grant buyout have we entered into that. And I mean, we could go ask them if we wanted to, but their answer, I'm sure, will be, well, let's get this grant done before we talk about that. But I don't care. We can go ask Ed and Hoppy. They'll be glad to talk to us about it.
So,
but they don't got $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 laying around.
I know that this isn't on the agenda, Lisa. So, you know.
Well, actually, it is in the sense that we're trying to figure out that entire area that is R1, that is yellow. Do we want to? Basically, I've identified that there's issues there with parcels that have been on the market for a very long time and have not been able to sell. Glad to hear that one has. I hope that works out. And then, but it looks like we have other parcels that we as a city own. So what I'm seeing is that for this conversation to be continued, I will get with Mayor DeVinny and determine exactly which one of those parcels the city actually owns, kind of do some sketching on that map so we can get a better view of what
we can do with it.
Yeah, how big is this mountain? Yeah. And so anyway, I would like to see that you know, for the next discussion. I haven't heard anything from Commission Member Villalobos. Are you still with us?
Yes, but I mean, like, to me, this whole conversation, it's like we're chasing our tail because FEMA has strict stipulations on what can be there. You know, there's certain things that have to be done. So this about changing the zoning and doing all that, I'm not too sure, you know, what that's for, but as long as we're going according to what FEMA guidelines stipulates and what you can and you cannot, that's a true guideline of what to follow.
Agreed. And just to wrap that up, and that is that it's zoned R1, which is single family residential housing, a regular house. And so based on the floodplain and the floodway maps, building a structure on any of those lots is close to impossible unless you're going to build a sky rise and you've got the money to do it.
There you go. That's right.
Well, didn't the people that have the blue house across right there in town next to the building, didn't they do what they had to do in order to lift it up?
I will tell you they did, and
yes,
this is just my opinion. Their property was located in such a place that they were just able to get it done. You know, they had to meet the setbacks from the street and then on both sides, and then not be too close to the floodplain or the floodway. And so it was tricky. Going further downstream, those same types of opportunities aren't really there to the same level that they were.
Lisa, could I add one point?
Yes,
real
sir.
quick? I'll keep it short, I promise. For example, my house, based on the new, which will be the new maps will be adopted soon. I'm in the floodway. My house is built in a floodway. It was not based on the 2012. So these people that are buying these properties, not only are they going to have with that, we're talking about more of an extensive floodplain situation. I mean, they do that on purpose because they don't want people building the floodway, and that's why they do stuff like that. And across the river for me, the river ranch, a lot of people are going to the 15 advisory maps because they know it's coming down the loop, and it's a couple of feet higher. So there's another issue along with that RV park, that big high-end RV park that wanted to come in. That's why they left, because they're in a floodway issue, you know?
And really, realistically, like, to be honest, the only things that you could put in there is a river outfitter, somebody that is going to profit off of the land and the river. That's what would be able to go in there, because you don't have structures there. You don't have RVs there. You don't have, there's somebody there at the gate taking money. They're utilizing the river. They're taking them tubing. So that could be done there, but this community does not want that type of businesses here.
I have a question, Kent. If in fact we as a commission want to discuss something in revolving or involving economic development and wanted to do that in an executive session, is this something that we can do, or do we need to make a plan for that?
We need to make a plan for that.
I wouldn't do it right now.
I'm good with that. I just wanted to confirm.
I'm running through the statute in my head with that. I'm not comfortable with that right now.
I'm fair enough. I think to a degree that may be something we should do at the next P&Z meeting, is to break into executive session and discuss some potential economic development for that property that would fit the needs of the city.
That should be open to the public.
I'm talking, you would like be the boss, Mike, calm yourself.
Whoa.
So it's an opportunity for us to discuss without disclosing any particular ideas. So as a wrap up to this, I'm going to send Co-Chair McLeod an email reminding him to look at other cities besides the city of San Marcos about what they have done with properties in the same situation, and that this will be an ongoing discussion.
Well, I'll add San Marcos in there. They're good. They're our sister city.
Of course you will.
Okay, no problem.
Going to the next item. Thank you, Jared. Whew, let's see. All right. Discussion and possible action to instruct staff to initiate a short-term rental roundup. You guys have been hearing me talk about that. I just kind of made that term up. Encouraging residents who are currently or plan for the future to use any or part of their home or property as a short-term rental. Short-term rental roundup to be determined, 1, if in fact we want to do it. 2, what would a launch date be? We want to talk about advertising on the website, any kind of social media, newspapers, timelines, possible revision of application for specific use permit to include detailed instructions, fees according to current code of ordinances, deadlines for submitting, public hearing date, and process of appeals. That's long and lengthy. And to make that in a neat little nutshell, there are a significant amount of people who have short-term rentals that are not identified with the city and therefore are not paying short-term rental tax, which goes to a restricted fund for, Mr. Anderson, help me out. Not for advertising. What is it called? We can only use that money for
hotel tax approved purposes.
Say it again.
It's under the hotel taxing.
It is
law, so
Tourism.
tourism. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. We can only use that money for tourism.
Like
Well-
tourist bureau,
Well, a tourist bureau.
or information center or
It
something.
could be signs
We don't
that
have,
say, you know, historic district here or something. I mean, tourism it can be kind of broad, but we've not ever had really enough money in that particular restricted fund to even talk about what we might do with it. So what I am seeing and have been for a good while is we have an untapped resource. We have roads that are crumbling and we don't have the money to fix them, but we are not encouraging, and I'm going to use that word on purpose, we're not encouraging the residents that are in our city limits who their guests, not the actual resident, but their guests pay tax when they stay anywhere at a hotel except when they come to Martindale. If in fact that particular B&B or short-term rental, as it is currently called,
they pay state tax.
yes, but they're also supposed to be paying city tax. We have it on in our books, on our code of ordinances. There's a 7% city tax. Mr. Anderson, are you still with us?
I have a point of order here that we need to get out. I have no problem talking about if you want to share discussion on a plan, but it's really not this isn't a planning and zoning commission item. And we're certainly not going to take any action associated with this tonight on instructing anybody on what to go do. That's the role of the city administration and not the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you've made a list of things that ought to go into creating a plan. If you want to go do that, go. I mean, if some council members want to get together and go continue to try to flesh that out, that'd be a great thing to go do. But to sit here and spend another hour talking about something that we've talked about in a council meeting not long ago, about all the different actual places we can actually spend that money. And the plan coming out of that was let's go make sure we know how to spend some of that money before we start going out and picking on people to go tell them that they're not paying their due deserts. Doesn't help us any. I don't believe it helps us any. As you pointed out, and
I respect that.
Dwayne pointed out, is that there's only certain allowable places to use that money. Gathering up a bunch more of it and help to make the city keep track of it and keep it safe and in the right spot. That to me doesn't help us any get further down the road. I'm
going to disagree with that.
In front of our skis here.
Here's why. First of all, I didn't have the intention of discussing what to do with the money. I was merely going to ask what that budget line item currently has in it, just to make a point that it has increased over time. And I do believe that if some people inside the city limits are following the rules, then if in fact you put yourself in that situation, then you should too. My purpose in putting this on this agenda is the fact that this has been kind of something that I've spent countless hours trying to determine the list, and it's certainly not about picking on anyone. Just in regular conversation and talking to friends and neighbors, I know 4 people who are ready to submit their applications for short-term rentals. Currently, the way that our application is written, Jared, if you'll go to the next slide. I believe it's the next one, yeah. So I don't know if you can make that bigger on your screen or whatever, but that's what our current application looks like. And it's pretty simple. My objective is to let the residents know that this is a simple process according to the way that it is on our books today. Now, the council may want to change that later, but according to the way it is on our books today, there's a $10 application fee to do this. So if in fact you ever think you might want to apply for a specific use permit for a short-term rental, I am suggesting that this be the time to do it. And because future councils may say that, you know, we want it to be different. There does have to be a public hearing. There is an expense to that goes on to the person who is applying. If multiple people apply, that expense would be reduced for each one. That's the reason my concept and idea to do it in a roundup type way, letting people know, don't be afraid of this. It's not, it ought not be scary. I personally have volunteered to go through the process as an example, as a leader, to let other residents know that it's an easy process to go through. So if in fact you feel like it's appropriate for us to discuss any further, then we could, or if you don't, then I will let it go. But I will tell you that I know that there's just shy of a handful of folks who are ready to put in their applications. Any further discussion? Great. Moving on to letter E. Discussion and action listing future dates of Planning and Zoning Commission meetings to be decided and placed on the City of Martindale's website for the remainder of 2020. So like we've talked about before, in years past, we've done, you know, our council meetings are on the first Tuesday of the month. We used to have P&Z or maybe a special meeting or something. It was reserved for the third. I certainly can block the third Tuesday of the month, as I have the first, to have a P&Z meeting if others are acceptable to that.
I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, so can we just across the board say that through the end of the year, the third Tuesday?
Why don't you make a roll call here and see if anybody else does.
Great, I'll do that. Co-chair Mike McLeod.
That sounds good to me.
Great, thank you. Commission member Bunker.
I would rather it be every third Tuesday of the month as needed.
Fair enough, but if you've got it blocked off, then you know that it's a possibility and you're good to go.
Which is fine.
Yeah, Commission member Villalobos.
I am already taken on Tuesdays.
The third Tuesday of the month?
Yes.
Fair enough. Do you have a suggestion for another particular day of the month?
No, as long as it happens like late, I'll try to jump on.
Okay, great. I would expect that it would be the same 6:30 that we historically do. So is that just a staff situation, or do we need any kind of motion for that, Mayor?
No, I don't think you do. I think you can just do it. Just.
I would like for it to be known that.
Jared, we got a place to put it on the webpage, if I remember right. You got a upcoming events thing on the right-hand side of the webpage, isn't it?
Yeah, we can put it on there.
Great.
So just send Jared a list of the dates.
I'll do that. I will certainly do that. So if there's not any further discussion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Commission member Villalobos, yay or nay?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Mayor Deviney?
Hey.
Very good. All those in favor? Aye. Yes. Good.
Bye.
Motion
Thank you,
carried.
Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Now, don't get off here, folks. Now we're rolling into our workshop for the council.
Correct.
So I'm gonna, we still got everybody. I'm gonna roll call right quick. It's gonna start at, let's see, 7:40.
40.
All right, and Mary Paul's not here, I think. Councilmember Bill Lobo's still with us.
Here.
Councilmember Allen,
Here.
Councilmember McLeod,
Yo.
Councilmember Bunker,
Present.
and Mayor DeVinny's here, so we have a quorum. We'll skip the Pledge of Allegiance because we already did that. And the only item on the agenda tonight is discussion on strategic planning, and that is going to be led by Mr. Jared. So Jared, you're up.
All right, hello, City Council.
Hello.
Start it up. So, prior to this meeting, as part of the Read Aheads, you received 2 documents of future spend plan and the Martindale Community Strategic Plan. The strategic plan is based off of the findings and discussions we previously had regarding priorities and initiatives that flew out of the research that we did concerning what people's feedback was on where they want the government to focus future efforts. So tonight, I'll briefly walk through the strategic plan and the future year spend plan. And there's going to be a third document related to strategic planning that's going to be focused on performance management and reaching these goals that we set for ourselves. And so for my intent for tonight's discussion and workshop is to settle on and receive comments and settle on the strategic priorities, initiatives, and outcomes as it relates to the strategic plan. And then for the future year spend plan, receive comments and feedback relating to recommended changes that you would like to see as a city council. The future year spend plan is starting with the strategic plan. The strategic plan sets up those priorities, initiatives, and then desired outcomes, which inform the future year spend plan. That future year spend plan looks at the next 5 budget years to develop a phased approach to achieve those strategic objectives that are laid out in the plan. That future year spend plan would then be used to inform the budgetary decisions every year. And so the future year spend plan is aspirational in nature. It is not deciding the budgets for the future. However, it is the playbook that we would use to identify where investments and what years we want to make those investments to achieve these strategic priorities. Any questions on that before we get into the strategic plan?
No, not at this time.
So the strategic plan, it opens with a draft letter from the mayor. I will work with Rob to further craft that language if he has any updates or change.
Sure, I will.
I'm sure you will, yes. It also has, following on to the next page, has a short section about Martindale. It describes the city and the history of the city in pretty generic terms. Unless anybody has feedback on these items, we'll continue on. The Martindale by the Numbers page is intended to provide a baseline and context around the city of Martindale. Who lives here, how many people, household income, and it also provides a budget summary to understand going into the strategic plan where our resources are allocated, to try to provide context, background, and to help shape expectations on the realm of feasible. Right? If you consider the budget as it's a zero-sum game if you want to move from one account to another for the most part. This provides a background on what that would be. Relatedly, if we are able to achieve concurrence on a future year spend plan, this section regarding the budget summary may be replaced with our first adoption of the future year spend plan. But for now, I wanted to have some sort of financial baseline to work off of as we go into the document. The next page describes the strategic plan, and most of this should be familiar to you. It describes the history of planning within the city, the existence of the comprehensive master plan that has become out of date. It describes the resolution that was passed in February and the intent behind developing the community-based strategic plan. And then on the following page, on page 8, it describes the methodology that the city used and how the strategic priorities were identified. Those strategic priorities we discussed in the previous workshop include infrastructure and public amenities, maintaining community, economic development, and management of public services. Those are in a different order from what they were initially we discussed. Moved infrastructure and public amenities to priority number 1 based on our prior discussion. And that includes, as the mayor alluded to in our previous discussion in the Planning and Zoning Commission, roads being a number 1 priority.
Are we gonna, do we want to talk about these as we go, or you want to wait to the end?
No, I was going to talk about them, so I was going to introduce each one and have discussion. I'm just kind of running through the front matter to get to each strategic priority. And make
okay. On your list of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'd switch 3 and 4. I'd make management and public services number 3 and economic development and planning number 4. My input. I'd be interested in hearing what the others said. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Number 1 is I think there's more bang for the buck out of our improving city services right now and in our operations. And I also think that that's what I got out of your presentation of the inputs from the citizens, that although economic development is important, it has to be a managed, a careful, a don't do the, you know, there's good economic development and there's bad economic development. And I kind of felt like, I don't know, I just feel like that either we don't understand it enough to make it up high up on the list, or the people are really concerned about making sure that we retain the small feel of the community, small town feel of the community.
Yeah, that's valid input. I'll tell you that the reason 3 was above 4, and that can be changed, it's not an issue to me. But from the standpoint of what the research showed, redeveloping the downtown was mentioned more often than improving city management, city services. The redeveloping the downtown was more frequently mentioned in the survey responses. That's what I was using as a proxy for priority, but that does not, this is our strategic plan. This is a city council strategic plan, the community strategic plan. We can make that change.
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with you. That's kind of hard. Yeah, this is Jan, by the way, interjecting. I can see how you can toy between 3 and 4 and how to prioritize that. I see we have, as a council member, probably, or as a council, might have more ability for the management and public services than we do for the economic development and planning. That kind of seems like it's kind of hard for us to do. I mean, as far as encouraging businesses to come here. So I don't know.
The reason I ranked them different, and as Jared pointed out, he got more inputs, I guess, from people talking to him about the strategic plan, but I don't think we asked him, how do you like city services? You know, you feel like we're doing a good job down at
Right.
And when we get complaints, you know, the people are beginning to use the web page to send in stuff that says, hey, how come you don't do this? Or I had a terrible problem with that, or whatever. It speaks more to the management and public services than it does to economic development plan. I really don't think I've got a single comment in a year now that says, boy, we'd really be better if you could go out and get us a Walmart, or go out and get us a McDonald's or something. I mean, people just aren't bringing that kind of stuff up, but they do come up and say, you know, you guys take too long to do this, or you know, how come I had to go, you know, wait 6 months to get my plat redone, and you know, all that kind of stuff has been going on. So.
Right.
I just wanted to ask, but isn't the way that it's listed is the way that the people that took the survey, that's the way it came out?
It reflects the number of responses concerning that topic. I would consider, based off of that, to be reflective of where they would want to see the priority placed. Not to say management and public services, the mayor's right. That's what we receive our complaints and feedback on a day-to-day basis. But the strategic planning services and workshops, economic development planning, was more of a feature, a common theme within the responses we received. Okay. Lisa, you're on mute.
That would be why. Thank you. If I may, for just a moment, yeah, I appreciate the fact that that was the way that those who took the survey, how it played out. The kicker is, yes, management and public services are critically important. However, the way you pay for that is through economic development and planning. And to make it be clear, at least from my perspective, economic development and planning, it does not mean necessarily big box stores. It means there are a whole lot of other kinds of commercial businesses that bring a revenue that would be beneficial to the community and not take away from our charm, if you will, of that, what I call Pollyannaville, small town feel. So, and to respond to Councilmember Bunker, it is our job as council members to work on and be involved with economic development and planning. It's my personal opinion, the reason we have such the situation that we are is we haven't had enough property owners willing to sell property so businesses could come in. I've given kudos to Mr. Jack Mudd in years past that he's one of the first. Now, no one's built on his property and created revenue for the city yet, but I look forward to that coming at some point. It's all under the guise of what I call guided growth.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I don't want a Walmart. We got one, 5 miles down the road. But a mom and pop little grocery store with specialized foods would be cool.
No doubt.
Sure, that's. I'm not the only one that thinks that.
Can I put my 2 cents worth in? Can I put my 2 cents worth in?
Yeah.
You know what I'm going to say? I'm a broken record, whatever. But economic development in this town is the river. If again we're talking about the parks and green space, if we have a beautiful park, do whatever we can, grants, whatever we can do, expand our parkland, people will come.
Yep. That's part of priority number one.
Huh?
That's under priority number 1, public amenities.
Okay, I'm just saying that is going to bring people here
yes.
to Rivertown. This is what makes this town unique. This is why I came here. So,
yeah, but you know, there's really nothing to sell on. I mean, for
yeah, but if you have something beautiful to come to, people will come.
If you had little mom and pop stores,
they'll come. They'll come because of the river.
And
in a positive way.
Something was brought to my attention a bit ago. Does anyone remember, Jan, you might, in previous administrations, did we not pass an ordinance stating that no tubing outfitters were allowed inside the city limits? Do we have that on our
We
book?
did not. We did not. We passed an ordinance that said no tubing, the tubing operations are restricted to commercial property,
They're restricted to commercial property. Okay, great.
which there is none along the river. It's all out on Highway 8.
Right.
So,
Now, do we get into the weeds of the technicalities of MU as a multi-use being not commercial, therefore not available to be used?
If you look at the building or the land use table and you find the tubing industry, you will look over and it is only under the commercial column.
See, so there's your safety net, Mike McClab. So in the city, if the property's not zoned commercial, you can't have an outfitter. You can't do any of that kind of business.
That's good.
You've oversimplified it a little bit, and that's probably getting off track here off of this discussion.
Yes.
But if we need to, we can revisit what could and could not happen associated with that. But the parks are a danger to that. Is why I bring that up.
yeah, so let's go through, let me put it in the priority order of 3 and 4 and come back to it once we go through each of the priorities, and maybe after we understand what that may be, might shape one way or another how we want to go forward on
Discussion, yes.
There's not a strong view one way or another besides the one recommendation we received. So we'll go through and then at the end we'll follow up with that one, Rob, if that's okay with you. All right, so within each strategic priority, there's a brief description of what that priority is, a list of initiatives, and then a list of desired outcomes. For the strategic priority number 1 is infrastructure and public amenities. And it says that we must improve, maintain, and expand the city's infrastructure and public amenities to ensure future economic viability of the city and to enhance the quality of life within our community. The foremost need in this area is the repair and resurfacing of deteriorating city roads. We must also protect our precious natural resources and maintain the environment. The San Marcos River is an important asset to be protected while remaining accessible and enjoyed by current and future generations. We value our parks, library, and cultural amenities and would like to see these facilities expanded in the future. That's a statement of where, as a city, that would guide in the area of infrastructure and public amenities. This statement would guide any development agreements, budgeting plans, and serves as kind of the North Star within this area. The initiatives to achieve those priorities include creating a capital improvement plan that identifies projects and available funding mechanisms to address deteriorating roads, improve walkability and rideability within the city, and remedy wastewater system deficiencies. Also includes supporting the library, including renovations to install restroom facilities, convert existing green space to city parks for other public uses, improve access to natural areas to include biking and hiking trails, and to provide space for youth sports through a multi-sport athletic field. And so these initiatives in our discussion regarding those zoning decisions to be made along properties near the river, these initiatives or any decision that the city council would make should be aligned with this priority and initiatives, such as improving access to natural areas as a objective, as a priority for the city. So when we're looking at, the issue of park expansion, that would be within lines of infrastructure and public amenities. And improving access to natural areas would include hiking and biking trails and the like. In terms of desired outcomes, the desired outcomes lay out the vision of, in 5 years from now, if we achieve our initiatives, what would that look like? And these desired outcomes will inform how we develop performance measures towards achieving those desired outcomes. So the first one being a capital improvement plan is completed. financing mechanisms are identified. And so what that would mean is for when we're developing performance measures, we would track whether we have the progress in completing a capital improvement plan and identifying financing mechanisms. For road quality is improved on highly trafficked areas and streets, avoid of significant ride quality defects or pavement distress features. That's the outcome that we'd want to achieve. Our measures that we would include in our strategic measurements framework would be I think it's ANSI standards. I'd have to look at what the standard is, but there's a standard for rating road quality. And so that our performance measures would be aligned towards a percentage increase in improvement or a percentage of roadways falling within a good quality or higher. Sidewalk and bike lanes network to support are significantly expanded, and hiking and biking trails are present within the city. So that would also lead to, the number of linear feet of sidewalks or bike lanes within the city. Has that improved or been expanded? Access to waste, another outcome, access to wastewater systems, abandoned site, on-site sewage facilities from prior expansions are remedied, and reduce corrective maintenance costs through improved preventive maintenance measures. So these outcomes are, again, what we try to achieve in this area. And the last couple are library supported by the city, has a public restroom facility as an outcome. And so as a measure, we would look at, are we financially supporting the library? And, to the extent that we have the ability, does it have a public restroom facility? And then city-owned green spaces along Thompson Drive, Fannin Street, and FM 1979 are converted for public use and enjoyment as an outcome. So that would look like, is it a community garden or flower garden, vegetable garden, flower garden? Is it available for walking and enjoyment? And the park facilities, as an outcome, would include a permanent public restroom facility and multi-sport youth athletic field. So those for strategic priority number 1, those are the initiatives and desired outcomes that I came up with based off the resident feedback we received and the comments I took note of during last workshop. I want to pause here and discuss any changes or additions to these initiatives or desired outcomes as they relate to infrastructure and public amenities.
Can I go first?
Yeah.
I like the opening statement. That's all God, motherhood, and apple pie. I think there's nothing. I don't see anything wrong with that. Under initiatives, the third bullet: convert existing green space to city parks or other public uses. I'd strike that one. This needs to be a 5-year plan, right? And we got all the parks we're going to be able to say grace over for the next 5 years. But we've spent almost a year trying to get phase 1 into any kind of shape to be used, and people are using the heck out of it, and it's still a mess. And we got phase 2 and phase 3 to go off and go do. I think I know a path to where we can go get money and go do things, but our ability to staff it and actually make that happen is limited, and therefore saying, oh yeah, we're going to do another one as well. I think we're tilting at windmills on that one, and that would translate to taking out the second from the bottom bullet as well. The rest of it, I think, is all I can see us spending money, effort, and I mean, we're already doing a lot of stuff to try to address those things, but maybe not enough, but what time and money allows. But those two, biting that off, that's.
Well, it depends on if we get some kind of grant for it, especially I think the River Committee's working on trying to get some kind of grant and something with Caldwell County, if I'm not mistaken.
if we got grant money, it would be devoted to phase 1, 2, and 3 of the parks, as opposed to going over across the road and doing something at Hobson Ranch. And the Fannin Street properties are torn up, split up and small. We can use them for parking for events or whatever, but I would not recommend
You
making
mean parking permit?
amongst.
You mean a parking spot? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's right across the street from Alan Bates. I mean, we're already struggling with
Across the street. Okay.
Yeah.
Not those properties we were talking about in the Planning and Zoning Committee.
No, that's phase 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. This Fannin Street stuff is on 1979 is right across the street from Alan Bates. The city owns 3 properties, although they're kind of split up.
So when you're saying convert existing green space, you're talking about other property than on the other side of 1979 from the park.
That's the Fannin Street properties, and then the Thomas Street one is the pond area out there at the front end.
Is that what you were talking about, Jared?
Yeah. So what these are spaces that the city currently maintains. We mow the lawns and maintain there's grass isn't growing, the shrubs aren't growing in it. However, we post a sign that says city property, do not trespass, or maybe it doesn't use those words, but that's essentially what it says. And so the recommendation here would be removing those signs and putting in 6x6 planter boxes and encouraging through the library or other civic organizations within the city to undertake a community gardening project within those small plots on Long Fanning Street, or to place a couple picnic tables and a gravel path around the green space, pretty large green space on Thompson Drive or by Hobson Ranch.
Hey, Jared, could I add a point real quick?
Yeah.
Could we maybe put some kind of verbiage in there, maybe possibly working with the county as a partnership on acquiring more, some of that land on 1979 and help us with maintenance, blah, 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 put that verbiage as a long-term vision of a partnership with the county. Because as I've stated before, the county really has no river park in their county. And Ed Thurio has been very excited about doing that. So if we could add that verbiage in there, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, let's get to that. One second. I took a note of it, and we'll come back to it. As a general statement, I think that would be in line with the feedback received through the survey responses, because people want to see their parks expanded. So I think that would be within line with what we're doing. However, I don't want to lose the point on whether we want to convert the green space to public use or not along Thomas Drive, Fannin Street, and FNC in 1979.
Yeah, that'd have to be discussed, I would think, in more detail, or come up with a more detailed plan to figure out what we can really do.
Yeah, so the outcome doesn't necessarily say what we're going to do.
Right.
It's as simple as removing the sign of no trespassing and allowing people to use that space for a picnic or other public enjoyment.
Maybe we need more parking. Might be better for parking as a parking lot. I hate paving parking lots, doing the Carole King thing. But okay, I have a comment about I kind of have a little bit of a problem about the city funds being used to put in restrooms for the library, unless it's a outside public restroom that everybody can use.
Yeah, the thought there would be a public restroom facility located in the library.
But you're saying inside the library.
That's what the responses were related to.
Yeah, I'd have a problem with that.
Do we consider the restroom that's inside of City Hall a public restroom or a private restroom?
We don't turn people away, but it's not a public restroom. There's no public restroom within the city of Martindale that I'm aware of.
And we got that porta can.
Oh, that's that one. That one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to discuss that a little more.
I think when it comes to that actual facility that the library is currently located, if in fact the library were to expand, be it on their own or in whatever capacity, would we potentially take over that space and it would then be city public access?
Oh,
That space is rented.
I'm just asking. And not everybody understands the dynamics of it all.
you
We
got
can explain it.
the answer would be no.
Yeah.
It's not the city's property, and if the library's not there, the owners.
That answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so there's 3 edits that we have on the table. Is there any other?
I think keeping it as close as to the people who answered the survey keeps the validity to the document, because once we start interjecting what we want, that takes away what the people that answered the survey wanted, which actually took time to do the survey. So I think what they answered and what they said is what we need to try to stay with.
With that tone, Sonia, I think I would like to see the surveys continued. Are people still able to answer some of those surveys? So we can kind of update some of that since we got such a low turnout.
So yes, we can continue to leave the survey open. I likely need to change how it's being hosted, because right now it's being hosted through George Washington University.
Okay.
I want to make that hosted through other means. And the strategic plan that we adopt today I should have said this on the front, is open for review at any time based on community feedback to meet the needs of the citizens. So we're not locked into this plan unchanged for 5 years. This plan will be reviewed annually, as will the future year spend plan and the performance management framework. All the strategic documents will be reviewed to make sure that they still align with the views of our city residents.
I mean, if you've got all this information and metrics, as people respond, it would potentially change your end results, correct?
Yeah, it would definitely inform them. There's very few items where there were disagreements within the responses. Most of them were in line with each other. The few disagreements we had related to the amount of the type of revitalization that we have in downtown, what atmosphere that we create. Would it be a party-like atmosphere, or would it not be? Overwhelmingly, it was, we don't want it to be a party-like atmosphere, but there were some who said, I want it to be hustling and bustling like green. The majority was the opposite. We like it to be for the residents currently, make sure it benefits the residents currently, it doesn't alienate them. There are also disagreements on the use of the river and tubing outfitters. There was clearly some who would like the tubing outfitters to remain off the river, and there were some who want to see expanded access for enjoyment and of the river. And then the third one was related to alcohol policies within the city. Some lamenting that the city was not a dry city, some wanting to
Jared, let me clarify.
services.
Excuse me, sir. I don't know what you said. I mean, everybody has a right to use the river. I'm saying tubing is totally, I tube. I want to clarify, we're talking about commercial outfitters, not people.
Right. Right. So there was disagreement within the survey results on that point. Some wanted to see expanded or not regulated as heavily, and some wanted.
I mean, we don't regulate tubing.
What's that?
I mean, people have a right to tube. It's a public river. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents worth.
The last one, like I was saying, was alcohol sale and consumption within the city. And, you know, expanding liquor or going back to dry city. Most everything else, people were consistent in their desires. Expand the parks, expand the library, and fix the roads, fix the sewer system. Though, in terms of this priority, infrastructure and public amenities, there's very little disagreement on these items.
I have a question about why you chose a youth sport such as a multi-sport youth athletic field. Why that?
So that came out in one of our workshops where it's related to the use of park space or amenities within the parks.
Mm-hmm.
People will like to have a youth soccer field / football field or football field as part of the future park plans. So in order to not box us into a specific idea to achieve the outcome, the initiative would be provide a space for youth sports. What that would look like and what that would be determined based on future decisions. But as far as how it relates to the priority, that's a public amenity that the citizens want that came out through a workshop session.
Well, I think some kind of a music venue would be something that would probably be more apropos. I'm telling you, there was a lot of people out Friday and Saturday night coming just to listen to music. And I think this would be, that's just as a point, probably to bring in economics too.
Specifically for downtown or as a public?
I don't know. It'd have to be discussed. Where would be a good spot to put up some kind of a outdoor auditorium or something. I don't know.
That could be part of the parks discussion when
I agree.
Actually designing that, et cetera.
Uh-huh.
Jared, I got one other issue here, I guess, that, this is supposed to be a 5-year plan, right?
That's correct.
So success is measured. You get to 2025 and you look back and you start checking off the bullets. I don't want us to, I think we'd be making a mistake if we let our eyes and appetite get too big, that we're going to end up having a bunch of bullets we're not going to check off. So I would urge us to pare this down to stuff that we think we could actually accomplish.
All right. Well, there's a lot more.
You're right. Some of this is aspirational.
And sky kind of thing, yeah.
But it's used to guide the future decisions of the city is what it's intended for. Whether we achieve it or not, yes, we're going to hold ourselves accountable and we're going to do everything we can to achieve those things. But if a precursor to putting in a park facility such as a multi-sport youth athletic field, a concert venue, or a public restroom facility, a lot of that's going to be determined by the availability of outside funding. So what this does is, by having an aspirational goal, is to include these items as going out and looking for grants to fund them, not necessarily funded out of the city budget necessarily, or be included as part of a capital improvement plan that we would use financing to address.
I hear you, but the sources of labor to make all this happen are limited. Doesn't matter how much money we got if we can't spend it. And spending a bunch of money is hard work. I think anybody that's ever worked on a grant or did anything to go make that happen. So that's why I still say don't let your alligator mouth overload your hummingbird to other end. So
yeah. All right. Well, we've got 3 more priorities that you need to go over, right?
Yes, but first, all right. So we have One,
If
two,
I may for a second, just an idea that crossed my mind when you're talking about a sports complex, and then Jan weighs in about music, which I agree, quite frankly, with both of them. That could be combined. That could be all in one, with some planning. Just an idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
We're not going to hash it out here.
No, agreed. I just thought I'd share it.
All right, so we got three other priorities. So
yeah, all right. So I got 5 recommended edits. I want to go do a roll on each of them. So for striking the bullet for converting green space into public use, Jan, I'll start with you. Are you for or against that? I don't want to call it motion, but idea.
I kind of like the idea because I've always kind of thought doing stuff to bring the community together. I'd love to see some kind of a community garden, which would be kind of a green space thing.
Yeah, that's totally what this would be.
Yeah,
would fit within that.
I kind of like it. You know, it would have to be all volunteer. You know, like Mayor DeVinny says, it takes. You know, we don't have the money right now, but I'd love to see it something in the future.
Okay. Sonia, what's your views on removing the conversion of green space?
I want to see it. I still want to see the green space. I want to do that.
And Lisa?
I agree as well.
And then Mayor DeVinny?
Get a vote, remember?
Oh, yes. Well, okay, there we go.
You forgot to ask me.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. And Mike McLeod.
Yes, thank you, sir. Yes, I like green space.
There we go. That's a plus on that one, Mike. Thanks. All right. The adding a bullet relating to working with the county on expanding the park. Keep the same word. Jan, what's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm hoping we're kind of working towards that.
Who's working on it?
I thought the river committee was.
Okay.
No, there's been discussion with the county about it. Just discussion.
Oh, okay. Well,
Is
that's a start.
Is that something that we would like to task the river, the advisory board with?
Sure.
And so, do we have anyone on this meeting that is?
Can I just ask a question? Why would we want the river board to do it if it's going to be a park? Don't we have a parks board? Can they work on it
I
together?
meant the parks. I meant the parks, Sonia. I'm sorry. Because I thought it was the parks people that brought it up. I don't know why I said river. That was my mistake.
Yes, we could task our boards and commissions to do this, I believe.
And just a quick reminder, I don't know if anybody else saw it, but one of our newest local businesses, I believe it's the Shades Cafe and Coffee, they actually talked about doing a community type garden and stuff. So we've already got businesses that are interested and wanting to support.
Okay. Going back to the adding verbiage relating to a partnership with the county for park expansion. I heard Jan, you're in favor of that. Sonia?
I am not for it until we are for sure that the county is willing to do it. We need either something in writing from them or something that is more than just words.
Hear, hear.
If it's like in writing and we know that, yes, that it is a for sure thing, then I would say, yeah, go for it. But since we have nothing in writing, at this point, I don't feel comfortable adding that to this.
Okay, and I heard Jan, you were in agreement with that approach.
Well, it's my understanding that they have to work together. I mean, the the city and the county have to work together in order to get the grant monies to do this. That's my understanding.
I mean, guys, this is
I may be wrong, so.
I mean, it depends on which grant we're using. The here would be in a general sense, would we work with the county to identify ways to expand the parks?
Hey, Jared, could we just make a general statement saying, hey, if possible, we could work with the county to do a partnership to acquire property and help maintain. Just some kind of.
I would try to stay away from the if. I would try to stay away from the if possible statements because that it's not very useful for the purposes of planning.
Okay.
I think if
maybe
if it's contingent, then we should find out that contingency first.
Or maybe in discussions or something with the county. That's what happens. It's been a discussion.
Bring them to the table. Bring them to the table and let's talk about it. And then we can
add the bullet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. That sounds, Lisa, you're in favor of Sonia's suggestion?
To
first find out the county's willingness to participate.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Okay. And Mike?
I'm just for working with the county, however that plays out. Is that a vote or not? Just working with the counties.
So I'm not going to add any language on it yet. And then what we'll do is send, unless you've been working with someone specific who's.
Yes, I have. I've worked with Ed Thuria. We've had multiple conversations about doing a possible partnership, but it's just been just discussions.
Okay.
Okay. We'll keep them up and keep us posted.
Yeah, I'll.
Hey, how about if we bring him on a discussion? Would that be sufficient?
Please do it.
Okay. I'll work on it. No problem.
All right. Mike's got that one for action.
Yeah, get somebody from the park committee in on it too.
Well, I know Ed. I'll take care of that.
Okay. Remove the language regarding the library restroom. Jan, what are your?
I have no problem with a public restroom, but I would have a problem improving the rental space that they are in using city funds. So I don't mind the public restroom. I don't know where you want to put one, but I think we need something.
So then the answer is no? No.
Yes.
So we do have a bullet for park facilities include a permanent public restroom facility already on here. So with that, would you say
yeah, but it looks like it's within the library.
So yeah, there's two public restroom facilities discussed in our desired outcomes. One is within the library and one is within the park.
Jared, I think you should frame the question in a yes or no manner, and you'll get them to be able to get the votes out and understand what they want to do.
Okay.
Hey, may I throw out something? So in my mind, I'm thinking I am all in favor of having a real public bathroom space, period. I'm not in favor in having it in property that the city doesn't own, no matter who occupies the property.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. So
I say no to the bullet. This is Jan.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I think what the suggestion was that he wants to change that bullet that says library is supported by the city, period.
Period. Yes.
So that's okay, right?
Well, we
already are.
That's
right. This is right. That means he's striking and has a public restroom. So the motion is put a period after city. And the answer is Lisa.
Yes.
Yes. And Jan.
Put a period, yes.
And Mike.
We're not going to discuss public restrooms?
Right. He'll take that out. That's what that's the idea here.
I say yes. I say yes, Mr.
Why
Mayor.
even have that bullet at all? I mean, since the library is already supported by the city.
Because it's a 5-year plan. This basically gives
Oh,
everybody that follows on behind us all the idea, hey, that's what everybody really wanted to go do. And
well, I'm not sure. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I don't want that bullet at all.
So no?
Yes.
Not the bullet at
Yes,
all.
it's no.
I'm glad I write it with pencil.
yeah, and Sonia,
Okay, that was,
put a period behind the library is supported by the city, period.
yes.
All right, so that's 3 yeses, 1 no.
There we go.
There you go.
And one absent.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is provide a space for youth sports and a music venue as an initiative. So the addition would be provide a space for youth sports and a music venue, such as a multi-sport athletic field for youth sports. And then for a concert venue would be, I think we just leave it as a music venue.
Yeah.
Hey, Jared, can you make this?
Multi-sport or multi-sport and arts or something.
Jared, can you make the document bigger so I don't have to stick my nose all the way up to my computer, please? Thank you. God bless America. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus.
So here's the initiative. Provide space for youth sports. Now we're either adding to that bullet or adding another bullet. Provide a space for music venue. Provide a music venue space. Jan, are you for?
Well, you have multi-sport. Why don't we do multi-sport and arts or something?
Yeah, activities. I mean, if you do say,
Yeah,
if you want to do it,
multi-sport and arts venue. Doesn't necessarily have to be an athletic field, but a nice little green space, where you could throw blankets down or something.
play soccer by day. Listen to me.
We don't want everything just geared towards the youth. We have a lot of adults that live in this town. And
So that's the addition.
Hey, Jared, where would these fields be, this place? Where would he have them at?
Phase 2, phase 3, phase 1, wherever.
That'd be a good play. That'd be a good use of parkland. I agree.
okay, that sounds good.
All right. Sonia, what says you? Add a statement about activities.
Yes.
All right, Lisa.
Agreed.
All right, Mike.
Yes, agree.
All right. And then the next one is remove some bullets. Rob, I believe that one came from you. Is there particular bullets that you recommend removing?
I think the third bullet under initiatives is won't happen in the next 5 years. If it does happen, it'll happen in name only and won't have any real impact on anything, and it is not worth tying your hat to. And
The second bullet, I think,
second
needs
bullet
to
from
go.
the bottom needs to come out too, because
Well, I think the second bullet on the top needs to come out too.
All right. So we already had a discussion on the green space bullets, and the council wanted to keep that. Now,
right.
Regarding the what Jan just said, the library. Jan, am I understanding you want to remove the bullet about supporting the library?
No, well, it says support the library, including renovations to install restroom facilities.
Right. That
I don't
last
think
part
that's
is
appropriate for the city to do.
there we go. That we already addressed that one.
Okay.
That's deleted. All right, Rob, was there anything else that you want to see removed from this?
No, y'all know it. Y'all heard me.
All right.
We're good.
Any other discussion on priority 1 items? Going down to maintain community. So maintain community expresses we desire to maintain the small town atmosphere, quiet neighborhoods, rural character of the city. Our identity as a quaint town is deeply tied to the serenity of the agricultural and natural environment, particularly the San Marcos River. We share a strong sense of community and pride in the agricultural history of the city. We enjoy minimal current minimal light and noise pollution. Interactions with neighbors, attending city events, and volunteering are important social resources that involve people in the life of the city and help knit the community together. We want to improve the appearance of the city and remedy unkept properties and other public nuisances. So for the initiatives to achieve that priority is to expand the enforcement of city codes regarding animal control, public nuisances, substandard buildings, and property conditions. Improve the perception and differentiation of the city by placing signs along city entrances. Regulate light pollution. Promote home rehabilitation programs that may be available to new and existing property owners through federal, state, or non-governmental programs. And foster community relationships, city events, promote inclusivity, celebrate the city's history and diversity, and encourage volunteerism. By implementing those initiatives, the desired outcomes would be for the city to sponsor events at least once every season or quarter. For example, a Civic Day event, 4th of July parade and fireworks, an autumn festival / event celebrating inclusivity and diversity, and a tree lighting celebration. 3 of those 4 already exist. The remaining desired outcomes, significant reduction in stray animal reports, public nuisance complaints, and the number of substandard buildings and property conditions. The third desired outcome is home rehabilitation resources and information are provided on the city website. The beautification of neighborhoods and city entrances are complete. A light pollution ordinance is adopted. And attractive signs placed at city entrances and visual promotion of the historic district are located along State Highway 80. So that's the priorities and initiatives and outcomes for maintaining community. Any feedback or recommended changes?
I'm seeing on bullet number 1 that we're probably going to need to hire, if we're going to be talking about substandard buildings and property conditions, some kind of a building code inspector or something.
Ideally,
I don't know if that's what you mean on it, but
that's what our initiative would be. That's what our initiative is. How we do that would be a determination of the management and staff. Like if we had it perfect, yes, we would have a code enforcement officer,
right?
Some kind. The feasibility limitations in terms of budget advise us we would not be able to do so. So likely what that would require is police time resources or city management time resources diverted to these.
I think it's good. I like all of those.
Likely that would be police resources and time to the documentation in terms of identifying the structures and documenting the conditions, and the management working with our city attorney to prosecute continued neglect.
Kind of like the Clark building. That worked out extremely well. That was excellent how that all worked out.
Yeah.
And Bud did a great job on that. And we got somebody coming in here, and that could be an absolute game changer for this town. So that was a good outcome.
Yeah, but I think they're talking about
that's just an example.
Neighborhood properties too. I think we're talking about neighborhood properties, not just buildings.
Yes.
Buildings
This is-
in town.
This is everything from unkept yards to cats to dogs.
Do we have anything written in here that talks about how long you can have mounds of caliche and cesspool looking water and blocks?
Yes, this strategic priority specifically addresses that issue.
Good.
And how we would enforce it or go about it, we would look at our existing ordinances, and if we need changes to address those conditions, we would recommend those changes.
I think we've got enough on the books to enforce it at this time. We just need somebody to do it.
Disagree with that.
Okay. All right. I'm good for all the initiatives and the desired income. For
Any
the
other
maintained
comment?
community.
Okay. No other comments. Jan, you're good with how this is? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. Yeah, I like it.
Sonia, any recommended edits, or is this good?
I like it. I just know maybe it wasn't discussed, but I know that there is maybe just with the upkeep of our release of information on the website,
The what
like to keep
information?
up with the times.
To keep up with the
Well,
community.
you know, just like current news on the website, this is what's going on. We're not having the 4th of July parade. Maybe like technology, like we need to be up with the times with releasing information.
All right, I made a note of that, and we'll get that one on priority number 4.
Thank you. But other than that, I like it. I like it all.
All right, Mike, any discussion or comments?
Looks great to me.
All right, and Lisa?
I'm all in.
All right, and Mayor Davini, did you have any comments?
The only comment I've got is the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet under initiatives is kind of general, and it scares me a little bit, but you addressed it under desired outcomes by just saying we're going to make information available on the webpage, and we certainly can do that. That's not a, that's.
Yeah, the thought there was, you know, USDA has an FHA, they have different loan programs, and then the Bobcat build resources that the city council.
Sure, all of it. If that initiative is simply we're going to make information available to people, I'm in, not a problem.
Yeah, it's a low hanging fruit as easy to achieve. Okay, going on to what's currently strategic priority 3, and that might change to 4, but for now, keep everybody on the same page. Strategic priority 3, economic development and planning. The priority is that the city has a unique opportunity to shape the future of the community through development of vacant land and buildings. We want to see a vibrant, revitalized downtown area that contains locally owned retail, dining, and entertainment options. Downtown revitalization should not alienate current residents by creating a loud, party-like atmosphere. City government should play an active role in promoting current businesses within the community and attracting businesses to Martindale, to include marketing, recruitment, and incentives. While we welcome retail stores along along Highway 80, do not want to strip of fast food or convenience stores. Our city's central location to nearby growing urban areas is a strength, yet growth should reflect and maintain the quality, character, and feel of life within Martindale. We enjoy the current agricultural character of the city and expect future developments to preserve that history and identity as much as possible. We desire affordable housing options in addition to the large residential lots available within the city. So the initiatives that the city would undertake for economic development would be partner with the regional economic development organization to market available commercial opportunities, enhance the public availability of information for building, planning, and zoning regulations, and improve related internal processes, develop an updated comprehensive master plan, Identify means to ease burdens on small business and improve the commercial environment downtown. Support advertising of local businesses. Preserve the city's identity through land use regulations and development agreements that maintain the agricultural heritage and intimate lifestyle. And expand the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction to regulate development on the periphery of the city. By implementing those initiatives, the desired outcomes would be a new comprehensive master plan developed and published. Housing developments include designs that incorporate small-scale cooperative farming, community vegetable and flower gardens, or other similar features that preserves elements of the current landscape, draw upon the community's history, and foster a community atmosphere. Restored downtown commercial buildings, possibly financed by leveraging a combination of private investment and outside grants. Reduced vacancy rates of commercial buildings. Achieve economic development projects without significant raising property taxes. Improve city staff efficiency in processing permits, inspections, plats, and development agreements. Building, planning, and zoning information regulations conspicuously provided on city website. Invitation sent to landowners notifying them of the opportunity and benefits of incorporating within the city's ETJ. Local businesses are promoted on city website and provide sponsorship opportunities for city events. And commercial opportunities are advertised through the Greater San Marcos Partnership. So that's the strategic priority of economic development planning, along with the associated initiatives and desired outcomes. Are there any comments or recommended changes?
What's the Greater San Marcos Partnership?
That is a partnership between Hays County, Caldwell County, and the city of San Marcos. And it functions as would a normal economic development corporation. And they work with businesses who are seeking to relocate. They advertise business opportunities, commercial opportunities within the two counties and the city of San Marcos. And they work to recruit businesses by informing them of and working with the cities to implement tax incentives or other, and make them aware of commercial real estate opportunities. So if you go on the Greater San Marcos Partnership website, one of the features that they have is almost a like Zillow or Redfin type listing of commercial property. Now, none of the commercial, and it has it from Kyle down through San Marcos and spread out some other areas. Have commercial land that's for sale, that's not currently advertised through them. Now, the partnership, this is going to likely when we reach out to Ed Thurio, our representative with the County Commissioners Court regarding partnership on park expansion, likely talk to him about this economic development organization. Because right now, the Caldwell County is a member. And so we need to, I want to identify through Caldwell County's membership, does the city receive any benefits or not? I know that sponsors include Lowling and Lockhart from Caldwell County, but I'm not sure what that means in terms of do they get any benefits for that sponsorship? Are you required to sponsor in order to obtain benefits, or would we be covered under the county? So the partnership is really to get to advertising commercial spaces and making sure we're on the map. If people are looking to locate in this region, that Martindale's included in the conversation along with San Marcos, Kyle, and the rest within this economic development organization.
And that's a wonderful idea, provided it doesn't cost too much. But until you know, right, I'd be a little leery about saying we're going to go do this.
Right. And Lisa, do you have any background on that?
I just sent everyone the link. in your messaging to the Greater San Marcos Partnership, so you can read the website and understand it yourself. I don't really know about the interworkings of how it all happens. I know what happens on the outside, as in what Jared has just described, and they do help promote. What I would like to add is that they cannot promote what the council has not approved for them to promote. So it's not like a organization that goes off rogue and brings big box stores in places you don't want them. So that's henceforth partnership.
The only reason I bring it up is typically these things, what few that I have heard about carry a pretty hefty price tag. If we can do it under the auspices of the county's membership, perfect, right? But if we can't, and they say, oh no, you got to give us X number of dollars, even if it's a small amount of dollars, perfect. But typically, I think these things are kind of big ticket items. So,
well, and it wouldn't hurt for us to consider it and have someone at our table sit with someone at their table and get a better understanding of that. I certainly would be someone who'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking possibly doing that, or I was going to reach out to Ed and see if you'd be willing to brief the council, because he's on the board of this Greater San Marcos Partnership. If you'd be willing to brief the council or set up a meeting for their executive director to brief the city council on their programs, initiatives, and how the city would be able to benefit and get involved and answer some of these questions. So I think for, like with the parks, partnership with the county, I think this initiative and desired outcome is as the mayor was mentioning, should be contingent on what our participation level would mean in terms of resources.
I'll gladly reach out.
Okay.
The last two, may I speak?
Yeah.
The last two bullets on the initiatives, preserve the city's identity through land use regulation and development agreements that maintain agricultural heritage and initiative lifestyle.
Intimate lifestyles, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there. What I see is like the cotton field next door to Dollar General. Let's kind of keep that. Don't let anybody develop it. I mean, what are we going to put some kind of regulations because it's already architectural?
Yeah, so what this would be is
I'm saying it wrong.
No, that's fine. So what this would be is when we have a development agreement on the table, that we would request features or amenities that would preserve the history of the city and provide a link to the heritage and maintain the close-knit community. So let's say a Walton 2.0 comes in and they want to do a large housing subdevelopment. We would look at land use regulations or development agreements conducted elsewhere. I know like the city of Elgin has and this was brought up in one of the survey responses I received. The city of Elgin has like this developer that had a community farm and some garden style, courtyard style housing where there's a lot of walkable space, a lot of green space, a community farm really for vegetables and things. And I think it has a community center, small community center for events and grilling out and those sort of things. So how this would go into play is maybe through land use regulations in terms of the number of square feet per development, let's say, has to maintain so much green space or something.
Oh, I see.
And we already have that in our ordinance.
Yeah, I thought we had something.
Yeah, so we review it, see if we want to change it. If it's good, if it achieves this initiative, then there would be no change needed.
And just so that you are kind of aware, when in that kind of situation, when it is, I believe, more than 5 acres, more than 5 or 7 acres that are developed, they have to designate a certain portion of the acreage to green space or park community, basically donate it to the city, or they can pay dollars in lieu of that designation. Either way, the city wins.
Yeah, and so what this would do would be inform those discussions within the development agreement and let them know that if you're building a cookie cutter development on farmland, that we would like some preservation of the history of that farm community. That could be as a naming in the green space, supporting a cultural heritage, community center.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. In the second, the last bullet, expanding our ETJ, what are the pros and cons to that?
Pros, a lot. Cons, none.
None.
Come on, there's got to be something.
Oh my God.
So the ETJ, right now, we're pretty close to along Highway 80. I guess that would be north and south. All the way down to abutting the Cherryville development and that master plan community that's envisioned for 10, 20 years in the future, and smart terminal on the other edge. We've kind of expanded along Highway 80 to about probably as far as we can get. There's some pockets that we would probably want to incorporate in our ETJ, but for the most part, we're almost hitting our natural boundary on that space.
Okay.
1579 and 142, I think there's area for us to expand our ETJ, because what could happen is as those two areas, the industrial center and the housing center, develop, Martindale's going to be kind of in the middle. And the more territory in the ETJ we can expand to, the better ability to regulate the growth and development on the city's periphery, which, in the long term, helps.
Well, how do we get those people to come into our ETJ?
If you want to take this, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, you knock on their door. You make a personal contact. You explain that, look, you are in no man's land. Based on our upcoming census, depending on the population level, there's all kinds of dynamics, and we could get it narrowed down. Jared could create a list or a script, per se, and be able to explain to those property owners what the potential benefit in the future could be for them being, in essence, protected, because Martindale truly stands for wanting to preserve what we have. And so that's the benefit. The other thing I wanted to throw in is that in so going through all of the sign ordinance that we did for the P&Z meeting earlier, I had forgotten, but when you ask about regulations and what happens in the ETJ, I don't know how many people are aware, but we actually have the authority to regulate signs in our entire ETJ. How many permits have we gotten for signs outside of the city limits? Probably none, because nobody knows that. But we have the ability to do that. And that was that sign ordinance was at $100. I'll mute because I can turn that off.
Sonia, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to say, okay, so when it says right there to expand the city's ETJ, so I'm just going to throw this out there. So what if Greenhouse Road wants to come in to the ETJ? And then they want, since they're in the ETJ, they need help with the roads. Are we, in a financial place where we could, fix roads like that when our own community needs stuff like that? Is that something?
The ETJ does not require any services be provided by the city to those people living in that area, only if they're within city limits. The ETJ, creates a close association, so where in the future there could be an incorporation into the city limits, and at that point we would have to provide services. But on the outset, it would not.
And
Okay.
Greenhouse Road is already in our ETJ, by the way.
And we,
Yeah.
and we
Yes,
don't
okay.
have to, that's something that I've come to understand. We don't even really have to provide services, especially if it's a situation where a new development is coming in. That is where a development agreement between the developer and the city, we have the opportunity to craft what kind of services that we're going to provide. In the situations that we've done before, we've put it all on the developer. And even though we haven't had anything really, really big happen, but in what we have toyed with, they were willing to do it.
And one other thing that I just wanted to say is right here, the initiatives has anybody ever thought of like possibly doing a small business grant?
So we'll get to that a little bit in the future year spend plan. But yeah, this would, you know, initiatives identify means to ease burdens on small business to improve the commercial environment downtown. That's an initiative that we would set up to try to achieve. As a desired outcome, you know, we would track that in terms of reduce vacancy rates, achieving development projects without raising taxes. Those are probably where we see those outcomes. And then in terms of the city grant, we can discuss that in our future year spend plan.
Can you explain the third bullet on the desired outcome? I'm not sure I quite understand it.
So this is the desired outcome would be for restored downtown commercial buildings. That's what we'd want to achieve. Mm-hmm. The second bullet could theoretically be thrown away because it's a say nothing kind of thing. Possibly financed by leveraging a combination of private investment and outside grants. So that's just showing a preference, a statement almost of preference that the city does not want to take on the expense of restoring downtown, but we want that as a desired outcome, and the preference would be for private investments like the property owner or outside grants being something that's provided through like a historic district redevelopment grant or financing.
So maybe researching different grants that could possibly be used in the historical district.
Right.
Okay.
And yeah. Any other comments or questions about these items? Okay.
Not this time.
All right. So, Jan, thumbs up, thumbs down. Are you good with how this is written?
Yeah, I'm still kind of iffy on the desired outcomes third bullet, but you have the possibility in there. I thought you were trying to get away from possibles and the possibility financed by leveraging a combination of private investment and outside grants. I mean, who's going to do that? We don't know. I don't know. I just have, but I'll live with it.
So yes.
Sonia?
I'm good with it.
Lisa?
Check.
Mike?
Yo.
You're good? Okay. And then Rob, did you have any comments to add?
No, that's okay by me.
All right. Going to the fourth, currently the fourth, the strategic priority management and public services. We want a city government that operates efficiently, provides high quality basic public services. We feel that our community is safe, and we expect the city government to enforce existing ordinances. The city should scale services as the city grows, while also maintaining low property taxes and generating other sources of revenue. We want to remain informed of developments, receive electronic announcements of public notices, and obtain faster and more accurate responses to requests for services or information. The city should strive to address existing grievances and inequality within the community. The city government should ensure expenditures reflect the priorities of its citizens. And so for initiatives, includes establish a long-range budgeting framework and associated performance measures to maintain strong financial stewardship and achieve strategic priorities. Balance expansion of police force and other services with the growth of the city. Improve convenience, automation, and customer experience of city services. Expand community outreach and engagement through multiple media channels, including website, mailers, social media, traditional online, and print news. Address issues of equality and existing grievances. Desired outcomes for the strategic priority and initiatives include automated payment options for utility bills, expanded police coverage for nights and weekends, reduction in perceived lack of enforcement of city ordinances, a 2-year spend plan developed and published, a strategic performance management framework completed, and regular progress reports on achieving strategic priorities available online. Public notices and information posted online via city website and social media accounts and provided through direct messaging via email and text. And then all areas of Martindale feel connected, valued, and heard. And the lag time for addressing complaints and requests for services is significantly reduced. So those are the initiatives and outcomes to achieve the strategic priority of management and public services. Any comments?
Yeah, I got one. We need to take out references to social media totally. And I need to insist on that.
I agree.
We can't control what that is, and we already spend too much time and effort answering questions that have nothing to do with the city because somebody complains about somebody else's social media comments. Yeah. And it is just a waste of time to try to go manage that. And I will tell you that the Caldwell County folks let the Office of Emergency Management, their emergency management people, start using that, and it has been a total headache for them as well. And they, this creates more problems than it solves. Our web page has the ability to auto communicate if people just simply go sign up for it, and notifications will get to them, text, email, whatever. So we do not need this in this little community right now. If we had a public information office, like a large facility or something, maybe you could go do it, but we do not have the staff or the time to deal with all the craziness that comes out of social media.
Yeah, I agree.
I like it.
Any more comments on that thought?
I agree also.
All right.
And besides, there's a lot of cybersecurity problems with it too.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, Sonia?
That I agree with that. We don't have a public information officer, and we can't expect our ladies at the offices to be, conducting that page, or a city council member, or even the mayor for the upkeep of a Facebook page. So it needs to go through the official website.
Well said.
Any comments on that, Lisa or Mike? Do you concur?
Fair enough. The website can certainly serve the purpose, as long as it is manned and updated, sometimes, especially during this COVID situation, daily. So I've appreciated the updates that have been on there.
Okay, good. And Mike?
I agree with Mr. Devaney. We don't want to get into social media.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Totally
so
agree.
Removed. Any other comments, thoughts, questions, concerns?
From what I see, it looks okay to me at this time.
Sonia,
I'm good.
Lisa,
I'm good.
and Mike?
Good to me.
All right. So the last item to discuss, well, before we go to the next page, is the proposal to swap priority number 3 and priority number 4. After discussing these, I figured now we're going to have a little more informed discussion on them. So Mayor DeVinny mentioned his recommendation to swap economic development and management public services for the order to be strategic priority number 3, management, and strategic priority number 4, economic development. Or Lisa, go ahead.
I have an opinion. I believe that we have put economic development as number 4 historically in the city of Martindale, which is why we are economically challenged. And I believe that in management and public services, you, for the most part, have expenses. And you have to have a place to pay. You have to have a place of income to pay for those expenses. You cannot pay for something you don't have if you are a city that's not willing to have credit, which we've had that conversation before as well. So if we're going to continue as a cash only entity, you really need to have economic development above management and public services. That's
Any
it.
other discussion on that point?
Sorry, Mayor DeVinny. I happen to agree with Lisa. In fact, I was going to say something about that, but Lisa, you explained it much better than I could have. So, but yeah, I was going to suggest keeping it the way it is.
Sonia, do you have any feedback on that point?
Who is that for?
So the question is, the proposal is to change strategic priority number 3 and number 4, swap them so that.
Yes, I agree with Jan and Lisa.
Okay. And Mike?
I agree with them.
All right.
Keep it the same.
Moving on. All right. So the next steps for implementing the strategic plan, and I'm not going to read this whole page, but see what it does. I'm going to go to the chart. The way I have structured this to implement the strategic plan and make sure we drive towards those outcomes is to develop a future year spend plan that outlines the long-term financial resources and resource decisions to help inform the budget process. That way, the budget process there's a link directly between what's in the plan and what's in the annual budget, and we can do some planning within that 5 years to phase in investments in these different strategic areas. Then the annual budget, as you know, it provides the revenue and expenditure plan to, within the year of execution, within a single fiscal year, to go off and do those things. Then the way we're going to hold ourselves and the public will hold the city accountable is through a strategic performance management framework. Fortunately, I did not have time to develop that document ahead of this meeting. But what that's going to look like is developing specific measures and metrics for those outcomes, and then tying those to tying that to a reporting function, I think quarterly, to the city council, and then have those reports publicly available on the city webpage, a website directly, a page dedicated to strategic priorities and management, where we show progress towards achieving these goals. And then aligning annual performance goals to those strategic outcomes as they're informed by the annual budget. So if, as an example, if the if the city council had said, I want to, through a strategic plan, we want a light pollution ordinance. Budget that's not really a budget item, it'd be a no-cost item, but as a strategic performance management framework, we're going to track the accomplishment of that as a strategic goal. And so that goal would go on, in this case, would be my performance goals for the next year, if we choose to go for it that year. That way, those outcomes are achieved and directly tied to personnel performance. If our strategic goal is to reduce or to expand police coverage and visibility, then we're going to, as a metric, the percent of time dedicated to highway patrol or patrol within the neighborhoods, and try to drive that percentage up. Less time spent in the office, more time on the beat to achieve that strategic objective of increased, in order to increase that coverage. So that way we're achieving that outcome that we hope to achieve, tying it to personnel. So these 4 documents, I think, are closely linked, tied together, and implement the strategic plan that we just talked about. Any questions on this concept of how we're going to implement this strategic plan? Any questions?
No.
All right.
Yeah, it looks okay right now.
All right. You say that, and now we're going to get into the future year spend plan.
May I make a motion, please?
Yes.
I don't know about everybody else, but I'm kind of tired. I was wondering if maybe we could continue this in another workshop after next city council meeting.
Or how about just Jared tell us how much more we have to go?
So
it's a lot of finances.
I have 5 minutes plus any discussion.
Okay.
5 minutes?
Give you 5 minutes.
All right.
The paperwork I looked over looks like it's more than 5 minutes. That's the only reason.
This 5 minutes is going to be an introduction, and then we'll the discussion is all up to you.
Okay.
This is not our only time that we have to address these items.
Okay.
I think it'll be valuable for you to go through the plan, understand what it is, what it's not, and then be prepared for concrete recommendations and changes at a future meeting. How about that?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just going to provide an overview, explain what it is, but if we're going to any recommendations for changes to the actual document, if it's not a question for clarity,
yes,
we'll push the changes to a future discussion, future workshop.
That's perfect. Okay. So I don't know if I really made a motion. If y'all want to yay or nay.
We're in a workshop.
Oh, okay.
All right. So this is all right. This is draft 0.1. This is the first initial draft. So this future year spend plan will be updated annually once it's completed and maintained over the next future years as we go towards achieving these things. So in order to maintain a log of those changes, I include a revision history page. So the future year spend plan is based off of a number of assumptions, but the goal is to guide decision-making when it comes to the annual budget. That way we're starting from a point of a strategic focused resource planning perspective, and if it works perfect and there's no changes or things, we could go from the future year spend plan, copy and paste, and now we have a budget. That's likely not going to be the case ever, but it provides the aspirational goals of where we want to try to allocate resources over a 5-year period. There are a number of assumptions that I think are critically important to understand the plan. First are that revenues assume a 3% increase over the year for property taxes, sales taxes, and franchise fees. However, other revenues are held flat. Utility fund revenues are held constant based on the existing fee structure, which is a use base, and since we're not proposing any fee rates increases as part of the future year spend plan, those revenue items are kept constant. The capital project expenditures, such as new roads or new park land or park improvements of a significant degree, more than just operations and maintenance, will be covered under a capital improvement plan, and that will guide how we're going to pay for those items. So you're not going to see build a new road on here, but you will see let's fix the potholes, because the capital projects are a multi-year funding mechanism. They have their own separate fund. Likely or possibly they're going to have their own financing. And so it's more appropriate for those to be handled within that plan than this one. This one's mostly for our annual operations and maintenance costs, if you want to think of it that way. Certain projects are identified as requiring a grant or being subject to a grant. Specifically, when we get into, you'll see is the project for developing a capital improvement plan or a comprehensive plan. That will cost money to bring in resources to do it. We don't have the staff on hand to do it. However, I've identified a grant within the plan that if that's achieved, then we will be able to proceed. And then if in the future, if that grant does not come through for that purpose, then we'd have to adjust the future year spend plan and likely change our strategic plan to remove that as an outcome or an issue. And then those things there are items that are considered no cost. Like I described with the ordinance example earlier, developing an ordinance, yes, there's costs associated, but it's incorporated in the existing operations and maintenance costs of those financial plan items. So there's a number of tables in the financial plan. The first one is the summary table. The financial plan, the future year spend plan, instead of going by fund types, it's aligned by strategic priority item. That we're able to see where our investments are being made according to our strategic priorities. It has the current year budget and then 5-year future year budget. In the future, as this grows, as we go forward, so if we're, say, in FY22, the future year spend plan will continue to look beyond the planning horizon of the future year of the strategic plan, but as that strategic plan would continue to be incorporated. So that's get clear once we get into it a few years down the line how that's maintained. Since these documents are being updated every year, it should continue to be aligned. The next set of tables go by strategic priority for those investment items. So for strategic priority number 1, it has a transfer of a capital improvement fund, supporting the library, which is part of the strategic plan, road maintenance and park operations and maintenance. These are those items that fall within the infrastructure and public amenities. And the numbers here are values. These can be changed. Think of these as a very, very half-baked, a half-baked solution. Is I think it was easier to provide numbers and receive recommended edits than to come up with numbers fresh. So the goal here is, where you see 30,000 transferred to capital improvement fund, that number is negotiable. I can't consider it a soft recommendation, but no am I tied to it. Priority 2 is the entrance signs. Priority 3 has funding that we would provide for economic development planning. The concept here being the spend plan item I threw in there as a placeholder to kind of put our money where our mouth is a strategic or a city-sponsored commerce grant. I threw $5,000 on it as an example. Essentially what this would be conceptually is grant that we would provide locally owned businesses or startups and entrepreneurs to support commerce within the city. So if there's, in a way that would also improve the future commerce of future entrepreneurs and small businesses. As an example, the Bagley property next to Shades, or a property downtown. This would structure the grant to be a matching grant. 5,000 would be the city's limit. And then the business owner and the property owner would each contribute an equal share towards that project. So if there was a project that costs $15,000 to renovate their facility in a way that would benefit long-term and future uses, the city would pony up 1/3 of that in that sort of scenario. So you could have, if one of those properties needed a fire suppression system or bathrooms or air conditioning in order to be a viable commercial space, it makes sense for the city to invest in that development in a way that will get returns beyond just that current tenant or owner in order to get those returns over the long term.
Mm-hmm. Good. I'm
sure we can flush it out more, but as for now, it's a placeholder with a number, and that can change. I'm open new or different ideas on how to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to economic development. And then lastly is our management and public services. And you will see that this includes all of the other operating expenses for the city for both the utility fund and general fund mixed together with references to specific fund accounts. And so this is the project or portfolios, if you will, of spend plan items across the future year budgets. So payroll expenses in the future years, municipal court, law enforcement, property, equipment. See if there's any significant major changes in here. I don't see a lot. So all of these items are tied to the spreadsheet that was also provided as a read ahead. And that spreadsheet provides the background data for these tables. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. So here it is. So these tables reflect what's in the document. So it has a summary page, revenue, prior years and projections, expenses, and so on these expense items. This is where how you would typically see the budget presented on an annual basis. Per fund account, a 5-year plan within that fund account forward. That way there's traceability back and from the strategic plan all the way to our annual budget. Here's how we're going to achieve those objectives and priorities. And so for example, the future year spend plan for FY21, that line, that column would likely be used as a starting point for our annual budget discussions coming up this summer. So any questions on the future year spend plan, the Word document, the items that are included in it, or how to read the tables, or any assumptions? Questions, comments, concerns?
I got one. Why does the summary, we're planning on, the way you got it is we're spending more than we bring in, so why would we do that?
So on the summary tab, you'll see at the bottom, everything it provides the general fund and utility fund revenues, and then the general fund and utility fund balance. Because within each strategic priority, those are intermixed, I maintain a separation within those on the spreadsheet. So you'll see at the bottom of those fund balances where there's positives and negatives. They're not perfectly balanced. For example, the future year spend plan right now is $118 for FY21 in the whole for the general fund. However, the utility fund balance is $11,000 extra. Again, this gets to, these numbers are placeholders. We can adjust them. This is a plan, it's aspirational, and we can change it in the future. Some of what's driving those negatives in the out years is specifically due to one of the planning assumptions that I made regarding projected utility fund revenues. So since those rates are fixed and they're based off of usage, I didn't think it would be appropriate to include a 3% increase because that regulation hasn't been enacted yet. However, our expenses will likely increase for some items to reflect inflation and other things. So there's going to be keeping revenue constant and having expenditures go up. You see an inflection point, and that's where you see in FY22 and 23 within the utility fund balance, it flips. So in the future, that deficit would likely be changed as we change our rates going forward from year to year.
I just don't think we should publish something to the public that says, hey, we're planning on spending more than we're bringing in. If we can fix it with the assumptions, if we can adjust whatever we got to adjust. But so as we make inputs, that's one of the ones that will
And just
I'll suggest that this is you've given us a lot to think about, a lot to look at. Any council member that wants to take a crack at changing numbers to do so with a red pen and a piece of paper and get that to Jared before the next meeting, and we can have a good discussion on this then. But I do believe we have run the limit of our ability to absorb here.
I have one piece which I think would potentially satisfy the concerns that you have, Mayor. Just literally in red on this document, all caps with an asterisk, note, these numbers are projections, a plan, an aspiration, all the things that you said a moment ago, which were great. Just to let it be known, this is exactly that.
Can I add one more point?
Yeah.
I hate to be a doomsayer. What about those two neighborhoods de-annex and we lose 40% of our revenue, which could very well.
I don't think we can make a strategic plan based on that.
Well, you might want to make an alternative because those people are trying every year. I don't know, but that's something that.
If we're I agree with you, Mike. If we're successful in our strategic plan, however, I don't think that will be a risk. If we provide value, if we address those.
That's the clue. You got to provide value for the citizens. And if you don't provide value, they're going to leave. That's all I got to say.
That's true for those communities and in the city as a whole, I think.
Well, those two neighborhoods at first, for sure. So that's all I got to say.
Any other comments or questions?
If ifs and buts were candy and nuts, oh, what a world this would be.
Sonia,
I have no comments right now.
I'm here, and I just agree with Mayor Davini as far as the numbers. Like, we just don't want to have that projection out there that we are, going to be spending more than our means. So that's my only concern.
It's just like when we propose a budget every single year. Budget is a plan. It's not until the quarter ends and then ultimately the year ends that you actually have actuals. So if you don't start with a plan, you won't ever have actuals. So having it noted as such so that others can understand, this is a plan. This is not what we're doing for sure. This is a springboard. State it how you like.
Job well done, Jared. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
I'll take that from you.
Can we go back and are we done now with trying to force feed us with a fire hose here?
Yeah,
I'm done with the fire hose unless there's any questions. I don't want to make sure that people understand what they're looking at when they go look on this on their own.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, good job.
So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
And that leaves Jan. Are you willing to adjourn? And Mike?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I've eaten enough of the elephant.
I declare we have adjourned.
Good night, folks. Be safe with the
All
COVID.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Fucking idiot.